you shy away. Manifest the ceiling when you shy away. Searching for that feeling just like an I love you. It isn't words like a song he wrote. It's never heard. Don't you?
Welcome back for the first time to Based on a True Story. This is episode 2. Here's your frickin' podcast. Today's guest is going to be my favorite guest of all time. Sorry, guys, there's going to be no topping this one. This is my beautiful Bae.
Oh, I feel so special. Hello.
Jacqueline is her name. Noel is her last.
Forever.
Forever. So today's topic, I just need to say thank you to everybody that reached out. There was so many different people. There was people I haven't talked to ever before in my life. There's people that I haven't talked to since elementary school, junior high, high school. Some family. I got a little nervous. I didn't hear from any family at first. Mostly all positive. But yeah, today I'm here with someone who has been a part of the rest of the story, and I want to hear her perspective on it. So, Bae, take it away.
Okay. Well, it all first started when so I was 15 and you were 17, and that's when we met. We met from my best friend Lizzie. You were friends with her.
Okay, hang on. Before people think I'm a creep, because
Why?
I had a hard time with this at first. First off, I'm very comfortable with saying that my wife at first was a bet.
You told me this.
My best friend told me, there's no way, don't even try it, you're wasting your time. I said, okay, bet. There was no money, nothing behind it, and I still say to this day, it's the best bet I ever made in my life.
I'm flattered. I mean, I didn't think of it as anyone once you did tell me this. I didn't get mad.
That being said, we were only 2 grades apart. She must have been like one of the younger people in her grades.
I was second to youngest in my class.
Lizzie was in between. Just to clarify, just to give some context. Go ahead, babe.
Yeah. So you guys were friends. I became her best friend in high school, and you at that time when I met you, I don't know where you were living. If you were living at your dad's or your mom's, or if you were floating. I think from what I remember, you were like kind of a floater all over the place, because I remember you were staying nights at Lizzie's house too.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
and you're in night school at that point.
Yeah, so it was a lot of times it was Lizzie's house or Chris's house, because that was only like a mile walk. So, I mean, I know I didn't have an address. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think I really ever thought anything of it, because it's not like I knew anything about your family yet at that time anyways.
Right. For the most part, I mean, 95% of the time I was sleeping in a bed, so.
Well.
That's not a that's a positive thing.
Oh, you mean, I know, but it's not like.
I know. Go ahead.
So you were in night school, like I said, and you were hoping to graduate on time, because this was 2007, and all your friends were graduating that year too.
Right.
And that was the plan. And I do remember, finding out that that wasn't going to happen.
Deflating as hell.
Yeah. You were pretty sad about that. Honestly, like, it's kind of hard to remember much of that, because now, as like the years have gone by, and the more things I've found out, you hid a lot from me when it came to emotions and like personal things that were going on in your life. You didn't bring that ever into our relationship until many years later, when you were like more comfortable.
I didn't bring that into a lot of relationships because I didn't want to be the sad boy. I didn't want to be the one who was pitied on and stuff. So I always tried to keep it real, to the point where, like, I guess the opposite of keeping it real, but I always just tried to make sure everyone was having fun.
And it's just absolutely incredible, because like even the feedback that we've heard from since the first episode, and how many other friends that were even closer knew you longer, way before I did, how they didn't even know that stuff either. And it's just, I mean, I don't know. I can't really say like if you were that person that did bring that stuff into the relationship from the get go. I don't know if I would have been there, because I grew up in a pretty normal household, and my parents are still together, happily married. Two older brothers. We lived in the same home my whole life, and
Very protective older brothers.
yeah.
I remember the first night I met your brother, Jason. Um, he asked for my
Andy
ID.
started a rumor.
Yeah.
The middle child
Shocker.
started a rumor to Jason, my older brother, that you were 21.
Yeah, and see,
And I'm
that's part of
15.
that insecurity of I had just turned 18. She was turning 16 in like 2 months. I don't know if anybody remembers, but on MTV there was this movie Jailbait that was like an MTV exclusive, and it was actually like that whole story. And the parents ended up pressing charges on him and blah blah blah. Not that there was anything going on yet, 'cause we just started dating anyway.
I never seen it. I didn't have cable growing up.
Well, I'm just talking about. I'm just not like we were having sex yet.
Yeah.
That being said, I knew that movie. It was in the back of my head, so I felt really uncomfortable about it.
But so you came over for the first time. It might have been for the first time. I don't know. You came over to hang out, and then all of a sudden, Jason's storming up the stairs, asking to see your ID. Doesn't say hi, nothing, who he is. Just coming up, acting like a dick,
A hard ass.
hard ass,
Um,
and you didn't have your license,
which of course, like,
which you drove
unbelievable.
there. So I don't know why you didn't have your license, whether you had one or not.
So I did,
You
and
did,
I
okay.
went to my car and I'm freaking out. Like, this guy's about to want to fight me. Like, I end up finding my USA hockey card that shows that I'm registered. It says my date of birth on it. So I show it to him. He's like, "Oh, you play hockey, huh?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, you're all right."
That got you in. That was probably a big sigh of relief.
Yeah. Which it was a big sigh of relief because I'm used to the whole, get out. Not from just the whole, not being accepted thing. So here we
Yeah.
go. Like, here's another flag where I'm screwed again.
It's just funny because, like, I'm just in my own world at that point, because it was terrifying for me, because I've just always grown up knowing that my brothers are going to give me the hardest time if I ever bring a boy around here, and my dad especially.
Which is interesting in itself.
And
Like,
so what was going through my mind at that time was my own like personal worries, freaking out that they're going to kick you out. I did think they were going to kick you out.
why didn't you tell me you thought they were going to kick me out?
Because then you'd be scared and never come around me. You would say, "Okay, bye, Felicia." Like,
Okay, go on. Keep going.
so you were, um, yeah, going to night school. You, yeah, unfortunately weren't able to graduate on time, so you weren't going to be graduating until the following year. Um, and
Which, by the way, like, I didn't. I only had to go for a quarter. So I had to. So I finished up the first quarter. I had enough credits to graduate, and I had to wait until June to officially walk.
okay, okay, and then you were selected to give the speech at graduation, which was so
Yeah.
impressive because of, who you were, where the graduation ceremony was at, which was at Stevenson.
Which was a big, big deal to me because, like I said last episode, I always wanted to graduate from there. So in a way, it kind of worked out because if you graduate from Stevenson High School, you graduate from the Palace. I actually got to graduate from the auditorium of Stevenson High School.
Which was a nice, like, haha moment for you, because,
It
you
was a
got
big
kicked out
middle
of
finger,
there.
like, fuck you, I did it. I
Yeah.
told you I did it. I did it.
Yeah, it was awesome. And you killed that speech. And you made your dad cry.
Which is always a bonus, but in a positive way. Anyway, I was reading over my speech last night just to kind of reminisce a little bit, and the last corny line I put in there was, "Congratulations, 2008. We've won the battle, but the war has just begun." which is corny as hell. But looking back at it, like it's like I was a fortune teller.
Yeah, as to what was to come. Or even in that moment, because that was the first time that that was the first time I met your mom and your sister there. And that was the first time all, including your dad, was like in the same room as all of that.
Yeah,
And
tensions were
I
high.
remember you being very, very nervous that they were going to be in the same room, even though it's this big auditorium, worried about a fight happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even tell you how many times you've thought that was going to happen in future times, gatherings, parties, other graduations, your
Well,
brother's
luckily, it
graduation.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
I will say though, my favorite part of that speech was, and this goes to show you guys, like sometimes you just gotta think on your feet. You just gotta take that first step. Like I get halfway through my speech, I go to flip the cards because I had them on note cards, and I'm back to the beginning again.
When you
And
messed up
my
again.
heart drops. I'm like, oh my god, you gotta be kidding me. I'm looking around now, mind you, like I have it memorized to an extent, so I know what the next line is. But because I'm freaking out that my cards are gone, like my mind blanks. Luckily, Miss McCaroff, lifesaver, this woman, she goes, Ryan, Ryan, Ryan. I look behind me, she points. I left half of them still on the podium. So I grab them. And the funny thing is, the next line was, I love you, Dad.
That was so
And
funny.
I think everybody thought I was just like ad libbing, but no, that was the next line in the speech. But everybody starts laughing, they start clapping. So there's that exhale, like everything's going to be okay. And I just finished up the next few note cards fine, and the rest is history.
Crushed it. So, I mean, after graduation, from what I can recall is, um, graduation, you were living with Chris,
Right.
your best friend. Um, you were living with him for a little bit, for a while before that. Probably about a year or so.
Something we lived together for a good while. I'm
Because
not sure exactly how long, but
you had gotten kicked out from your dad's, right?
right.
That's why. Okay. And so then, yeah, you were there for a while. And then, I was there on the day of the incident, of the house fire.
Yeah, something I didn't get into last episode because I it's crazy to think that a house fire would just go right over your head. But yeah, so I'm living with my friend Chris. We share a bedroom upstairs with his family. His family is now my family. His sisters are now my sisters. Like to this day, they're still family to me. If they ever need anything, I'm there. Um. Anyway, so we're bunking together. We have a tiny room together where we fit both of our twin beds, one dresser, and again this little space. But this time I got my boy with me, so no suicidal thoughts. Um. But
Yeah, that was a good year. That was fun.
oh, it was amazing.
It was really fun.
As much as of a grind that it was, I never laughed more in my life up to that point. Like it was just a blast.
They became my family too, because like they were your family, and I seen that.
Oh, and it was just so you had you in the house, me, Chris, Scott. I mean, these are all coming from different families, so we're all bringing our own little something to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one terrible day, um, his mom was always yelling at us to clean the damn room, get the cigarette smell out. So finally, I was like, okay, I got it. I go upstairs, clean the room. I'm airing it out. Chris worked midnights at the time, so he'd come home and he'd fall asleep. So we had a blanket that hung over our window. Um, so I'm airing it out, and I let the blanket hang. And we had a halogen lamp that was right by the window. Didn't realize I left it kind of in the bowl a little bit. Um, his little sister, very very young, goes upstairs to she turns on the light to get a DVD. She doesn't realize the blanket's in there. I didn't realize I put it in there. Um, all of a sudden she comes downstairs. She's crying. She goes, "There's smoke coming from your guys' bedroom." And I'm thinking like, oh, I probably left a cigarette burning, whatever. I get
I
up there.
remember you just immediately getting up and sprinting. That's what I remember.
Oh, well, I could be lying then. I don't know. My mind goes back to it's probably a cigarette.
Yeah, because the smoke alarms weren't even going off yet.
I go up there and the room's in flames. I open the door and the three walls in front of me are just flames going up to the ceiling. So I run downstairs. I say, everybody out now. Everybody get out. Chris has this deer in the headlights kind of looks, what? I go, dude, the house is on fire. So we try to go back up the stairs, and we get about halfway, and we're just engulfed in black smoke. We can't breathe. We come back down. I'm a ghost. I'm pale white. I'm thinking like I did this. I was the last one up there. Not that anybody did it. As freak accident, but I'm thinking like I didn't know Katie went in there at all. So for a hot second, I'm like I just burnt down these people's house.
Yeah, as I remember a moment where I'm standing across the street and I can see the flames from the back of the house, from the back window of your bedroom, just taking over the rooftop. And I'm just like, look at you, and I just see you just walking down the street.
Well, before it was because before I left, Chris and I ran to the backyard, and I'm trying to think of anything. Like I got the fire extinguisher in my hand, and our bedroom was on the second story, and I'm spraying, and I'm thinking it's not reaching. Like I know it's not gonna reach, but what I'm trying everything. I take the fire extinguisher and I whip it up into the damn bedroom.
And your dad ended up showing up because I think you called him while that was going on, right?
Yeah. Everything I had was in that room.
Yeah.
Literally everything,
Everything.
everything. So I'm thinking,
You're crushed.
yeah, I mean, I already feel terrible. 'Cause I'm thinking, like, if I wasn't with this family right now, oh my gosh, I just felt like I was causing them so many problems that they didn't need.
Which she reassured you from the very beginning, like, this is a freak accident,
Which,
you know,
right,
but I can't imagine what you think just from your past. And
because they're such nice people too.
yeah.
Like, of course, that's what they're gonna say. Um, because I'm thinking, even in my mind, like, sure, I would say that to the kid, but god damn it, like,
Mm.
if I just would have told him no, can't live with me, this would have never happened. So I'm thinking I'm homeless again. Like they're not gonna let. Like what are they? They don't know what they're gonna do. I'm the last thing on their mind, and that was the farthest thing from the truth. Um, Luckily, their friends, Amanda and Charlie, who I've only met at this time like a couple times, I think. Um, they offered us a room, and I'm still thinking like, oh boy, like I gotta try to figure something out. And they're like, what are you talking about? Of course you're coming with us. And again, just blown back. So go ahead, babe. Take it back.
So you lived with them for a little while, and then, you know, I mean, you grew up at that point. You were graduated. You had a couple different jobs, I think. You got the apartment. Eventually, you moved out with Chris and his family, and then
Yeah,
you
well,
got an
that there was a
apartment.
little delay to that though. Um, so we ended up getting a rental house. I think it was like for a year maybe. Um, but then they were moving back into their house, and I was supposed to move back in with my dad. My dad and I had rekindled our relationship, which I didn't think was going to happen after the house I was staying in burnt down and I lost all my possessions. I figured my dad would be like, "Okay, you can come home now." No, actually, my uncle picks me up the next day. Shout out to Uncle Kevin. He took me clothes shopping because all I had was the clothes that were on my back. Um, so yeah, we moved to a rental house. We go to move back, or they go to move back home. I'm thinking I'm moving home. My dad tells me last minute, "Sorry, you can't move back here." I'm thinking like, man, I've been painting your basement. Like, I've
Yeah,
been doing all this work. Like,
I was kind of upset about that.
but I didn't know the whole story. I still don't. It's not my.
Yeah,
I don't need to know.
right.
Um,
So
But here I
then,
was again. I needed a place to stay, and I had to go to Scott the day they were moving back in and be like, I'm so sorry. I got nowhere to go." And he was pissed. I could tell he was pissed.
but
But
not at you,
no,
right?
it's a
No,
situation, I
at the
think.
situation. Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this with him,
And because I think he knows he's the kind of guy that's not going to turn a kid away.
Yeah. I remember him saying too, like he was just
I mean,
he
sure, I
didn't
wasn't a kid
understand.
anymore, but I mean, I'm still 19. I'm a kid. I call 30-year-olds kids. Like, we're all still kids. Um, but yeah, so I moved back in for like 6 weeks, and then I finally get my own place with My good friends Andy and Steve.
And that was fun.
That was fun. That was a party for like 6 months.
I was in my senior year of high school.
And your boyfriend's got his own apartment.
That was fun. But no, for as far as you did, you grinded. You worked and you came home. You
And
know.
that's when I mentioned last episode I was a garbage man. That's when I was a garbage man.
Yep.
Oh my god, it was dead of the winter. I'll tell you what though, greatest job I've ever had.
You were so in shape.
I was ripped. I remember when I first realized it. I looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh my god, I'm never gonna wear a shirt again. My whole life, I've always been like average, maybe a little chubby. Thank God nowadays dad bods are in. Um, but yeah, man, I was ripped until one day, an icy day. I go to jump back on the truck, snap my wrist, missed the step. Well, I didn't miss it. I slipped. Um, Next thing I know, I'm pushing a broom, and I wasn't pushing the broom good enough, and I was fired. So here I am with an apartment, two of my buddies, but they picked me up. They covered me for a little bit.
And then I think you guys only lived there for probably what, a year, and then did you
It
move
was
in
6 months.
Oh, okay. Wow, that was quick. Did you live with Lobo after that?
Yep. Mr. Lopo, as some of you may know him as, was my high school teacher. The same guy that told me before, when all the stuff was going down in 10th grade, he said, I understand what you're going through. I don't understand what, or pause. I understand what you're going through. I'm here if you need any help. And that was like the first adult I had that was non family, non friend's parents, that was like, I'm going to look out for you.
Who knows if you would have ever even graduated, or went to night school, or
All I know is if it wasn't for him taking that time out while I was at Stevenson to keep me under his wing and make sure I stayed on the straight and narrow, if it wasn't for that guy, oh my gosh. Like, he's the one that kept me in check. He's the one that told me, you're being a little asshole, knock it off. They're going to say this, they're going to say that. If you want to be the person that you swear that you think you are, you can't be doing this shit. And he talked to me like a person. He didn't talk to me like someone who had power over me or an authoritative figure. He talked to me like a human being. And it was powerful.
you plan on having an episode with him, right?
Yeah. He's gonna be, see, I haven't done it yet, but I plan on having him be my checker because that's what he's been my whole life. He's been my fact checker. If I'm out of line, he calls me out on it. But he's also there when I need him to be. And he's the kind of guy that, sure, we fight here and there. We hardly agree exactly on the same thing. We are best friends. He's he's a lifeline I never thought I'd have at this point in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can't recall again how long you lived with him. I can never remember any
I
of
slept
the
on that guy's
lengths.
couch a lot
You,
before he finally was like, you know what, let's get a 2 bedroom apartment. My roommate's moving out anyway. It was kind of like the stars aligned. Um, his roommate Brian, shout out Brian Kaminsky, amazing guy.
moved to Seattle, right?
No, he moved to Portland.
Ah, fact check.
Yep. See, Lopo. Yep. Should have left that one.
You shouldn't correct me. Let
Right.
Lopo correct me.
But yeah, stars aligned, and I had a place to sleep.
And then after living there, that was when we finally were ready to make our jump and get an apartment together.
Right. Well, hang on a second. I had this crazy ass neighbor.
Save it for Lopo. Crazy.
You know what? Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
That you guys.
Because Lopo has a lot more to add.
It's so good.
Got to keep you guys on the edge of your toes.
Yeah.
Got to keep you coming back.
Ryan, your life is, it's a book.
Shoot, we haven't even hit on Taylor's house yet. Go ahead.
So we, decided to go that we were going to get an apartment together. The day that we were supposed to sign the lease, my dad called me and he was like, hey, Jason, the guy across the street from my parents, which I was living there too. So, the guy across the street, he had inherited the house and moved his family there for like a year and like kind of like fixed it up a little bit, getting ready to sell it. And he was ready to go back to his other house and ready to sell it, and he was giving it for a really really cheap price.
He was giving it away.
Yeah, I mean it was 2011, so housing market sucked. And it was even better than that. And so my dad, again, grew up very fortunate to have, just parents that want to help you make the best decisions for yourself. I
Privileged.
knew, yeah, honestly. And
That's
I
nothing to
knew
be
how my
ashamed
dad
of.
felt about
Hang on.
wanting.
See, that's a big problem. Privilege. White privilege. There's nothing to be ashamed about with white privilege. It's not like you are addicted to white privilege and hide it. You know what I mean? The big problem with it is people don't want to own it. I understand all the, with all the stuff that I've gone through. I still understand that my privilege allowed me a second chance. And I'm not going to let that second chance go. That's why I'm doing this. This is why, perspective is such a big deal to me. That's why Detroit is such a big deal to me because it's just all perspective. I mean, I'm going to own my white privilege and I'm going to do what I can to give back. Go ahead, babe.
So my dad, um, had said he was really against us getting an apartment in the first place, and not because like I was moving out, his baby girl getting out. He was just so annoyed about the fact that we are going to be paying for an apartment that goes towards nothing. It's not an investment. And that just, I was like, but dad, I'm 19. Like, what do you expect? Like, this is how I'm going to learn.
And that's a big exactly. You have to learn from those experiences. Sure, we were going to be throwing away money,
Mm-hmm.
but that's an experience you need to learn. And to be honest, something that you haven't even experienced yet being away from home because we do live across the street from your parents.
Right, right. Um, so, and we had the option, we chose the option, but
Because
what
a
the
fool would
option,
not have taken the house.
yeah. So my parents, they were in a place where they were able to do so, which we're forever grateful for. But they ended up buying the house
Let's
for
just
us,
say we got the
and
house for less than a brand new Jeep Wrangler.
okay, but we and we paid them back every cent. They became the bank of mom and dad, uh, which I
Privilege.
don't know how you felt about it when it was happening. What I don't know
It
what was going
was
through your mind, because I mean you're getting at basically getting a house
as a gift.
out of nowhere.
Um,
Now we have a permanent place to stay. Like, like for you, someone who's floated all over the place, and now like
I'm gonna edit this out because you already asked me.
stop interrupting me. You keep doing it. Like long sentences. It's one thing if you say like a little thing, but like you keep cutting me off.
Because it's perspective. So I'm not cutting you off to tell you what I was feeling. I'm letting people understand the difference.
Okay. Yeah.
So for me, it was really odd because I've never been given a gift like this before in my life. Um, I felt like I hit bingo, jackpot, fucking everything. I mean, I'm about to have, not only am I about to have a bed, that's my bed, I'm about to have a house. Like, I haven't had a house in 7 years. I mean, and to me, it's one thing to like never have something before and then get it. But for me, it's a whole nother thing to have something, know what it's like to have it, and then lose it. And then to get it back again, it's like a redemption. Like, I gotta hold on to this. I can't let this go. Not only because of my love for you, but I mean, just look at what your family does for you. Like, this is the love of a family that I've always wanted.
And then I feel like too, once we got the house, that was when your relationship with your dad really started to grow. And I remember shortly before that too, that's when I finally kind of felt accepted too, um, with your dad, which was at his 50th surprise birthday party at their house. And shortly before that, we had found out that all of basically his aunts and uncles and dad and all of my parents on both sides, my dad's side of the family and my mom's, all their my uncles and aunts, they all went to Stevenson together. And they all partied with each other and knew each other. We didn't find this out until like 2.5 years into our relationship.
My dad and her uncle were best friends.
Yeah. And so we figured this out. It was crazy. Your dad had a surprise birthday party. We invited my uncle Dave to come, and
Mind you, her Uncle Dave's last name was Gill. Her last name was Zero. So, I mean, there was no reason to connect the dots until my dad asked what Jacqueline's mom's last name was.
yeah, is that what it was that happened? I didn't know.
Which still doesn't make much sense.
Noel. I
So,
thought my mom recognized your Aunt Lisa or something like Lisa Noel.
yeah, that might have been it.
Yeah.
Shame on your parents for not catching on faster.
I know.
Because they knew my last name.
Yeah, no, that is what happened. Because I remember my mom even saying, she's like, how did I not like even connect that? But the night of that party, my uncle at the time was an alcoholic. He's been sober for many years now.
Shout out Dave Gill.
So proud of him. But he had a bit too much to drink that night, and at that point, like pretty much everyone was almost gone, and my uncle got a little nasty.
My stepmom whooped his ass.
Yeah. He, just started blabbering, that I'm not good. You're not good enough for me.
You don't know shit. You don't know shit. Shut the fuck up.
There was just no getting to him at that point, and that really set off your dad. And
well, my dad mocked him for a while.
Yeah, he egged him on, but he ended up getting too pissed. And at that moment, like, I don't know if it was before or after your dad's girlfriend had jumped him over the table and attacked him in defense because she just
I've
had
seen
enough
that happen,
of it. And
like live time, I still don't understand how it worked. Like all I know is I seen like her above the table and then they were both underneath the table.
Yeah.
Either way, she whooped his ass.
I was so embarrassed, but in that moment, your dad just finally started going off on him and telling him that I'm the daughter that he's never had.
My dad's always wanted a daughter.
Yeah, and he was always a hard ass. He was a hard ass with you, and then like meeting him, and you didn't really have, like I said, you didn't really have a relationship with him that much yet. So we didn't see him too often.
One thing about my dad is he loved his Harleys, he loved his hard rock, loved his weed, wasn't a big drinker, tough guy, but soft as a teddy bear.
Which we so found out after that. After that, it was game over. I had him on the hook.
Right.
So yeah, that was shortly after that, that was when I feel like your relationship with him really started to grow. We had the house, you're responsible, you're working.
He was proud of me.
Yeah. And the relationship became so much fun. We would go over there all the time. It was a great time.
I'd go over there all the time just to hang out with the dude for an hour or two. Like that was my plan, at least 2 or 3 times a week because he lived so close. I don't know. I mean, I worked from 6 o'clock at night till 2 in the morning, so why not stop by my dad's at 4:30 before work and just say what's up? It's on the way anyway. It's just
usually when you work together, you always hear about how like relationships don't work and there's always just fighting, just like the odds working together causes a lot of stress in a relationship, but it didn't at all to me. We never had any issues. So that was a really good time. And then, during that time was when you proposed when we were working there.
Mm-hmm.
And you were really cute with that.
I wanted to do it on top of a mountain. Snowboarding, because that's something we always did together.
Stubborn me.
Yeah.
Didn't want to go snowboarding in fake snow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I shot that down.
So I had to improvise.
I had been pestering him. I mean, hinting that I was ready to get engaged for a while before that.
I just played it cool because I knew I was going to. But I don't know. Like I like to play games a little bit.
I remember, which, I didn't find out until after, but the day that you went to go pick up the ring, you were like, "Oh, I'm going to the mall with my dad." And I was like, "Why are you going to the mall with your dad? Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. You guys don't go to the mall
We
together.
never went to the
Are
mall
you
together.
getting me a ring?" And and you said that you legit thought that I knew at that point, but I didn't. I was just joking because that was just a way for me to get it in again. You're like, "Hey, I'm ready." Um and I you ended up saying, you're like, you came up with a good excuse. You said that you were picking him up because his something was wrong with his car and you had to go take him to Sears Auto. And I was just like, "Oh, okay." So on.
Smooth.
Yeah, that's and so you ended up proposing in front of Chris's house, because that was where you asked me to be your girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
along the curb, and that was cute. We thought we were. He was taking me out to eat, and he was like, "Oh, I had to go get something at Scott and Mom's house." And I was just like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, he pulls up, and I was like, "Oh, I'll walk in and say hi with you." So we're walking, and then as we get into the middle of the front lawn, that was when he dropped down. I don't even remember what you said because I was just so whoa excited.
Well,
This
you
is
didn't say
actually
anything for a few
happening.
seconds after I asked. That's for sure.
I don't recall that.
That happened.
Oh, I'm sorry. But, we said yeah, or I said yes. And, wedding planning was fun. It was long. It was like a year and a half. Um,
It was a blast for me because all I had to do was pick out the music.
yeah, that was really all you cared about. And then aside from that, though, I remember the stress of the seating charts.
Mm-hmm.
Again, once again, family being in the same room, and it wasn't just, your parents. It was always there was always something going on between like aunts and uncle, just anybody. And you really stressed out about that. And me, I'm trying to take charge like, this is how it's going to be, too bad, because I didn't grow up with stuff like that to have to worry about that. So in my head, like, it wasn't a big deal, and I don't know if I took that serious enough or not, but I mean, it all worked out because come wedding day, that was it was an amazing day. But I do remember you freaking out about drama.
Yeah, because I know my brother didn't show up at first.
Yeah,
Once he did, well, he was there. He was in the background.
yeah, your
Um,
brother wasn't in a good place then.
no, not at all. Um, but we got through it.
Yeah.
Everything went off pretty well without a hitch.
Oh, it was so fun.
I remember someone telling me my dad was smoking a stove in the reception area, and someone told me he couldn't do that, and he said I can do whatever the fuck I want. It's my son's wedding.
Yeah, he like ashed on my dress in the dance floor. I said, "Dad, get it out of here." He said the same thing. "I'll do what I want. I'm the dad of the groom."
To this day, one of my favorite pictures of him is when he's hugging you.
Yeah,
He's just got you so tight. You could just tell he's
that
happy
photo
as hell.
that photo says 1,000 words, and I can't tell you how many times like he had told me how bad he's always wanted a daughter.
Finally got his daughter.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, I always felt included ever since the night of that party. That was the moment where I always felt
Feel that love,
loved.
huh?
And I don't know if, like, I mean, like, and I don't know, I don't want to sound like I'm so awesome or anything, but like, I feel like because I was in your life, it played a big role, obviously, in bringing you two back together.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was proof that I could do something,
Yeah.
if I put my mind to it. And I mean, that's another reason why I wanted to do this podcast too, because I mean, the two things I really put to my mind were you and our kids.
Hmm.
And there's one thing I can say without feeling weird about it is those are two things I do a kick-ass job at.
Yeah.
So it's just
Honey,
something I'm trying
you
to
don't
prove to
even know.
myself.
You're incredible.
Okay, enough. Keep going.
I can talk about you for days. Um, well, okay,
Ridiculous.
so wait, we had the wedding, that was good. Oh, so we, you know, ended up having a wedding night baby. And we didn't find out until
You were like 4 months pregnant.
yeah, because September, October, November, December, I was over 4 months, probably 4.5, because it was like 2 weeks before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And we could not get, when I called the OB and stuff, I, oh, well, okay, let's backtrack. The moment I found out I was pregnant,
I went to work.
yeah. And I was saying, like, I don't know, something's different. I just started to finally notice some things, and I was like, maybe I should just take a test. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll let you know. Have a good night at work. And then I go and get the test, and I come home and I take it, and I see it's positive, and I just start bawling my eyes out. And I mean, I'll be honest, it wasn't one of those exciting things. First off,
Shocked. I mean, and life changing,
it was just
unexpected.
shocking. I wasn't ready. I was 21 when we got married. So
I was 23.
no, I was still 21 then. Yeah, I was still 21 then when I got pregnant, or when I found out. No, I'm sorry, I just turned 22. But I it's just some people say like, "Oh, but you're married, who cares?" And I'm like, "No, that's not what our plan was." And I just remember being really scared. So I called you, and I mean, you were just ecstatic. And I'm like, yeah, because you're not the one that's going to be like having this baby in your belly. I was like, our life has changed forever. And you're like, yes.
Well, to throw some perspective your way, I was not ecstatic.
Okay, well, you put on a really good front trying to make me feel better. So that just
I
goes
think
to show what an awesome human you are. But
when I wasn't talking to you, I was just dropping F bomb after F bomb after F bomb.
oh my
And my
gosh.
dad was the first person I called.
Which I told you not to call anybody until I processed this.
Yeah.
But you did.
And he was just laughing at me. It's like, well, he just basically, you got this. Don't worry about it. Like, you'll be fine. You're going to be a great dad. Um, and
Yeah.
then,
Yeah, so um we're eventually, of course, I came around and I was super excited and ready to plan, and I had an awesome pregnancy. You know, then a month and a half, 6 weeks before Jackson was supposed to be born, one of the worst days of our lives happened.
yeah, so, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I sleep late 'cause I work late. Um, Jacqueline came home, was taking a nap with me. My aunt had called her. I heard my aunt's voice. She sounded hysterical. I jumped up. I said, "What hospital is he at?" I didn't hear what she said, but there's something, I mean, I never really told anybody this either, but my dad's death was my biggest fear for the longest time. I mean, I remember talking to a couple of my friends a lot. I remember talking to my friends a lot about how that was the one thing I didn't want to lose my dad, and I was not ready, not anywhere near ready, and it happened. Long story short, it happened, and my world flipped upside down again.
Yeah, I mean, we were 6 weeks away from bringing Jackson into the world, and it was his first grandchild.
And not long after we did the gender reveal, we were having a boy. I mean, my dad was not a social media dude at all, but a post to this day that still gets to me is, "Oh, now it's official. I can finally tell everybody I'm going to be a grandfather. Never thought I'd see the day." And the sad part is, he never did. So there's just something that um,
That was the first time I ever seen you cry.
I lost it. I lost everything. Um, I remember I coming home. Well, I remember doing like the funeral arrangements. I had to be the next of kin. So my dad technically wasn't married
And your brother wasn't in a place to,
to handle it.
yeah,
Um,
your older brother.
so mind you, I was coached a lot from my aunts and uncles. They helped me, but I just remember going through the motions, just being numb, just agreeing to everything, just making sure I wasn't a problem. Because I don't, I never liked having power like that. Um, So to have control and power like that, I was just, everyone was telling me what to do, what to do, what to do, and okay, okay, whatever you guys say. Not to say, again, this is perspective. Like, if I could have done it again, I would have done it the exact same way. I would have asked for the help. I mean, it's not like I'm trying to put shame on anybody. Just goes to show you like how much pain someone goes through though when you lose somebody and how numb you are to everything going around.
I mean, I couldn't imagine if we didn't have the help that we had when
Ugh,
that happened because I mean, you're still so young. You were 24,
yeah.
right? I
And that it was like a week or two before that. I had him drive me to go pick up my Jeep because my engine exploded in my brand new car, and his toolbox was in the back seat. And I go, "What'd you do? Get fired?" He goes, "Yep." I go, "Shut the fuck up!" Like I was just kidding. And he goes, "Yeah." I don't remember why he said he got fired. Something about cut doesn't matter. But
yeah.
yeah, he got fired, and I think that wrecked the dude. I think he realized, he's 54, just got fired. Um, the guy grinded his whole life, paycheck to paycheck. Always, I mean, with the exception of while he was whooping my ass. When he was happy, the guy had the biggest grin on his face. Um, it kills me inside that he never got to relax. Well, I guess he did get to relax for the last few weeks, but the guy must have been under so much stress.
It did seem like though, like almost like he at least he hit it around us. He showed nothing but just continued excitement for Jackson coming, and
Right.
he was like, "Oh, hey, now I'm gonna be home. I can, watch Jackson," because we had to figure out our plans too, with what we were gonna do, um, with daycare and stuff like that. And I just remember how excited he was for that. He's like, "Come drop him off," and and we were so looking forward to that, and because my parents still worked and full-time jobs, and so we knew that we weren't going to have any help, so we are like, oh, I remember thinking like, wow, what a time for that to happen. And then yeah, what a time for that to happen as well. Speech at your dad's funeral. Well, no, not even the speech, just in general. The day of the funeral came.
So I'm still in this fog because I lost my hero, my dad. Um, but I still wanted to give a eulogy at the funeral to really try to clear the air. Because a lot of people only knew my dad and I as the two that butted heads, and they really hadn't seen the growth we had made and how close I felt to making him proud. And I remember I had a hard time writing the speech because I just remember being drunk. Like,
I don't even remember him being drunk.
I remember my friends, there was somebody over every day,
Yeah, I do
day and
remember
night,
that.
for like 3 days, I felt like.
Yeah, even if they weren't hanging out with you, because there's many moments where I just recall you laying in bed, but they were just sitting in the living room, just there.
Because I think I told all of them how much my dad meant to me at one point or another. And I told them all multiple times I'm going to be a wreck when he goes. Um, so I finally write it. Um, and I remember the first time, like I had to practice, so I figured, okay, I'll practice in front of my friends. And I think that was the moment where it didn't matter how much I had to drink, like it all wore off, and I just broke down. And I had like five friends huddle around me, literally like a football huddle, and just they all just held me, like they literally held me from falling down. And that's just one of those examples of my friends were not friends. My friends are brothers. They all know this. We fight a lot, just like brothers do.
Yeah.
We don't talk for a long time, but I'm always rooting for them, even if it's from a distance, because, like I said, they're brothers. let's fast forward to the next day, the day of the funeral. I'm nervous as fuck, pacing back and forth. My mom calls, and I'm thinking she's gonna call me to be like, how are you doing? And the first thing I hear, how dare they? How dare they not put me in any of those fucking pictures? And I didn't laugh this time. I blew up. And are you fucking kidding me? On the day of my dad's funeral, on the day of. And I just remember whipping my phone at the wall and it shattering. And
I was blown away that this was actually going on a day like that. I something I can't still wrap my head around how family can be like that.
perspective wise, because her family doesn't fight like this.
No.
So this is the first time she's seeing something like this on this level.
And I'm not a very confrontational person. And so I don't know what to do.
And I do what I always do. I put that fucking mask on. I gotta go do this. Like I can't not do it. So I do it. I get through it. I just have you just come stand next to me
Yeah.
because I felt like my knees were gonna buckle
Mm-hmm.
the whole time. Um, and I really think to this day that's because whether I was fighting with my dad or he was rooting for me or whatever, like he was my backbone. Like he was the one that like even if I was trying to prove him wrong, like he was the reason why I was doing it. So becoming a father, like for a little bit there, just the happiness of it was all deflated.
And then, Jackson did come shortly after that. And I feel like that was, I mean, like in my head, I guess the way I thought out it played, I was just like so excited for Jackson to be there because it was finally something else to focus on for you.
And that's what ended up
Something
happening.
positive. Yeah, but like, something that we didn't really realize years to come was that maybe that took away time too from you grieving.
Yeah, because I fell head over heels in love with that boy.
Yeah, you had no time to grieve.
I mean, this was if I was to do anything right in my life, this was going to be it. Like I was going to take everything I learned and take that as all those failings, all those times I fell on my ass and had to get up and dust myself off and go again. All those examples, all this that I've learned, I was going to make sure my kid was going to learn all of those things, but in a different way. As in, all those things I learned, I like one thing that needs to be said is I wouldn't take back anything that happened because without anything that happened or without all of that stuff, I mean, all that stuff made me who I am, and it opened my eyes up to so many different perspectives and cultures and just I had to be vulnerable. Like if I needed a place to sleep, I couldn't be a smartass. I couldn't act like I had all my shit together. Like I had to tell him, like, look, I'm stuck. Help me. And I was just gonna make sure that Jackson had everything that I didn't have.
And I think a lot of parents, any parent, can put that into their own perspective. Um, Whether, however, any way that they were raised, there's always got to be something, that you tell yourself when you're about to bring children in your life. What the kind of parent, well, this is the kind of parent I'm going to be. And a lot of people, coming from maybe a broken household, you can choose to either repeat that cycle or you can choose to break that cycle and choose to be that opposite or give that child everything that, like you said, that you didn't have.
Right, and that's why there's so many. I guess I want to teach my kids the value of relationships and family and emotions and cultures and perspective and all that. I don't want him to think he's anything less than he is because of some kind of stereotype. And I don't want him or Josie to think of anybody else like that.
Stereotypes are a really big thing for me too because we grew up with our generation, our parents. This is what you do. You graduate college, or I'm sorry, you graduate high school. You go to college. You better go to college. You get that degree. That was one thing my parents always pressed on me. They had a family rule.
You have a path laid out for you before
Yes.
you even know what you want to do.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. You know, what if I don't want to do that? And then it's just all of a sudden now there's tension in the family. Um, I didn't want him, I always want to cheer him on no matter what he wants to do. Just communication.
And that's really important to me
Communication.
too, because I see a lot of parents that when they're in similar shoes, they they try to make them everything they weren't. Like let's for example, a lot of people are like, "What are you gonna have him on skates when he's 1 years old?" And he's gonna be a hockey player, right? Because you just love hockey and you never got to do that when you were younger, so you're gonna do that. I'm like, no, you don't. That's not how I'm looking at this at all. I'm When it comes to what am I going to allow my kid to do, I'm going to give him options because that's the one thing I never had was options. Um, if he wants to play hockey, awesome. If he wants to play baseball, cool. If he doesn't like sports, whatever. Like there's so many other things I'm willing to bond with that boy just to make sure we have that relationship. I don't give a shit what it is as long as that's a bond.
So shortly after he was born, I had to finish school and finish my externship. Daycare, totally unaffordable. Um, so you ended up taking a break from school, from college, and you stayed home with him from 9 to 5, and also you were still working poker.
Right.
And Jackson was a really easy baby, so I don't really, from my end, I never seen a struggle then. I don't know if you were struggling then.
No, we had it pretty much down to
Yeah,
like
the
the
schedule was good.
15-minute mark.
Yeah, the schedule was good. But then you started working, you moved around with poker and
Hmm.
started working nights, like
Later than
throughout the nights.
usual.
Yeah, that's when it started getting more difficult because I got hired in from my externship and uh, worked there for 3 years. So, I mean, we did that for 3 years straight, with you working a night job and hopefully being home before I gotta leave at like 8:30 in the morning.
There's a couple times we had to call Travis over.
Yeah, yeah,
Not for long, but
yeah. And but towards the end of that, maybe even the last like 2 years of that before I quit, my job was when things really did start to get kind of more harder on you with your job because of the stress and anxiety.
I mean, yeah, I think a lot played into it. I think the lack of sleep did. I mean, I was at least once a week pulling an all-nighter, if not two. Um, but not only that, poker poker's a funny industry because the dealers are pretty much the referee of the game, so you have to be as objective as you can. So the thing about poker is when people are winning, they're the nicest people in the world, and when they're losing, they rip you apart verbally. Like you get just and you got to take it. Like when you think about it, you're working for tips. Um, these people are paying your bills essentially. So if they want to call you every slur under the sun, you got to sit there and take it. And I mean, I've always had thick skin. That's why I dealt cards for a decade. Um, but with the lack of sleep and dealing with my dad and now starting to finally grieve. My son's old enough now where we finally have a bond. I have a connection with him because I stay home with him every morning. um, eventually these people start calling you these names, and you start thinking, what if my kid like saw this? What if I mean, my kid would think I'm the biggest piece of shit to sit here and just take this. Like, I've never been the kind of guy to take shit like this.
It got
And
to the point where, I mean, the days leading up to when you'd have to work. I mean, we were very fortunate. You didn't have to work. I think you worked like 2 days a week, and you made great money to support us to where that was all you had to do. But seeing how nervous you would get even the night before, um, knowing that you were going to have to work the next day and what you were going to have to go into, what you were going to be walking into, who's going to lose, who's going to be the asshole that night. I felt just terrible because we needed that money. We needed I also needed you home as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like, we talked about you switching jobs so many times and getting out of poker, but just the idea of what you would have to do, how many hours you'd be gone just to make up for that, and still not even, honestly, even make
it's the same amount of
the
money. I
same
mean,
amount of money that you were
I
making.
could not imagine working for $15, $20 an hour at the
And so
time.
you stuck it out, and I felt terrible too on my end because of how much you hated it. And nobody deserves to ever work a job that they hate, ever.
But I mean, it was logical though, common sense. Like, you're not going to turn this down. I mean, when you think of the positive perks of it, I mean, there was a lot of people I met in that industry that were amazing people. I still have relationships with a lot of people from there to this day, but I jokingly say my white button-up shirt's in the rafters because I'm never going back. I mean, I don't care. I don't care what it's for. That place, it just brings me back to the, believe it or not, like the darkest time of my life.
Yeah. And just even during all that and the stress of work, shortly after I had Jackson was when I discovered photography and took the plunge and bought, a camera, and ended up slowly building up a business. Along with that, though, you got to understand, when you're 15, and I mean, everybody changes. You all change at some point. Everybody does. And our relationship started when I was 15. And at this point, I think I'm 23. And that's kind of, photography opened up that creative side of me that I never knew I had. And that's when I evolved. Um,
And I supported it 100%.
yeah, you did, but it was just still, when you're working a job that you hate and I start thriving and getting more and more excited, and me having, you're not sleeping because you're worried about you don't want to go to your job the next day, and I can't sleep because I'm so excited to go to my job the next day. And
Oh, I know, but
that,
I wasn't gonna let my depression and what I was going through bring you down. Like, I mean, I was trying my
I don't
best to
think you
hide
were
it.
trying not to, but it eventually it started to show is
Right.
what had happened. And that's when we started getting a little bit more tension with everything. And I know it was a depression because I know that wasn't you, but like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, like, you're clearly starting to really go down a place where neither of us want you to be at.
Just to paint a picture for people that don't deal with depression or anxiety, I love Jacqueline with all my heart. I mean, she's my rock. She's everything to me. And I feel the same exact way from her. So it's not like I don't feel like she doesn't love me. Um, that being said, when you are in that mindset of just negativity, negative, 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 I mean, you go from, a success story, this high school sweetheart. I mean, we just saw today, we were watching that Stay Together for the Kids video, and it starts off with 50% of American households end in divorce. And like, that number, it takes an even bigger plunge when it comes to high school sweethearts. And I'm not saying we're out of the woods yet, but
Hey,
we're crushing.
don't say that.
We are absolutely crushing. I love this girl more than I did the day I married her.
Yeah, I love you too. We've evolved together, but just
But like I was saying, um, when you're depressed, it went from that to it went from depression takes you to a place where she's out looking for somebody else when she's at these weddings, or she's every time she goes, like, she looks so beautiful, which is another thing. Like, she'd get so dolled up when she'd go out, but every time, she would just be in her sweats and t-shirts at home. But mind you, like, that's the kind of girl I love. But here I am thinking in my mind, like, oh, so you can't get dressed up for me, but you'll get dressed up for them. Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah. And I mean, you you were vocal about things and how you felt. And, logical me, I'm just like, what do you mean? I have to dress up. I'm going to a wedding. This is a formal place and I'm a professional. It's my business.
And mind you, when
And
I start acting irrational like that, that's when I noticed it was starting. I was starting to slip down a slippery slope again, because I knew I was wearing these masks for a little bit. We were actually discussing, like, timeline wise, when I started to realize when the depression started to become like an everyday thing. Um, it was right around the time that Chester Bennington died, and I remember my little brother telling me, here Chester died. Who the hell is Chester? Like, don't get me wrong, I love Lincoln Park, but the Chester's just not a name that clicks right away. Um, it's Chester Bennington, Lincoln Park, and my jaw dropped because, I mean, again, I'm not a huge Lincoln Park fan, but that band meant something to me. Music meaning what it does to me. I've always had songs picked out for things. Um, a place for my head was always one of those songs, and it's actually something that I share a bond with somebody I know. That being said, though, it crushed me that he died, and I'm just starting to think, like, God, here's this guy. He looks like he's on top of the world. He's always looks so happy. How? And that was right around the same time as Robin Williams, I think.
yeah,
Another guy that,
yep.
I mean, Good Will Hunting is one of my all-time favorite movies. Um, God, Aladdin's my favorite Disney movie. Like, this guy's hilarious. Um,
And I remember, at that point, you listening to One More Light, the album from them,
yeah, they had not been out that long.
nonstop upstairs.
Yeah,
Upstairs kind of became your friend.
and that's what it was. That upstairs just became my dungeon where I could hide from the world. There was even a point a couple of times where I go to Wayne State. I just couldn't get the effort. I mean, I'd drive down there, I'd go park my car, and I just that silence of that parking garage, just being by myself. Like, I would sit there. I mean, I didn't do it a lot. I did it like 3 times, I think, but just sat there in my car for 8 hours just to be alone.
I mean, during that time, that was when I was pregnant with Josie.
Hmm.
And I just, when you're upstairs, I'm still, taking care of Jackson in the house.
Mind you, I'm doing
I'm thinking
homework,
you're
quote
doing
unquote.
homework. Yeah, okay. So yeah, it
I
was
wasn't doing homework majority of the time.
I'm thinking you are, and I'm just and you also worked the night before, maybe, or because when you did work, you needed like 2 days to recoup from that, at least.
Right, because it wasn't an
Uh,
8-hour job. Like,
so
I
I'm
would
just letting
start,
you do your own thing. I'm taking care of Jackson, giving you your space.
pause. I would only work a couple days a week, but I would start at 3 in the afternoon, and I wouldn't get home till 9, 10 in the morning the next morning. So, I mean, you're talking 14 to 16-hour days ish.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, when it came to you being home, if you were upstairs, I knew, I guess, that you had things to do, and so I'm gonna let you do that. I got everything handled down here. I guess I just, for the longest time, I didn't even, I didn't know that there was more to it. I just thought you hated your job and you couldn't wait to be done with it. And we had a plan at that point when I was pregnant with Josie, was hopefully, once we had her and we go on maternity leave, once I go back, I would go back to work for maybe one more year and really grind out like pushing marketing for my business, and then I could quit my 9 to 5 and take photography on full time. And then during that time, you would just finish up school. And because we knew eventually you were going to have to, like, go into the student teaching and you weren't going to be able to be home.
Right.
So we made our own plan at that point.
But then, um,
Well, we had Josie,
we had Josie.
and we realized that the plan that we were doing with Jackson, with him working, and then
I wasn't gonna do it again.
he couldn't do it with another kid there too. Josie wasn't an easy baby either, mind you, but
It might be
yeah,
because it
he
was the
could.
second time around too. I don't think I was able to trick my mind like I could the first time when it came to my dad. Because now this is the second go around. Like I
Okay.
had already gone through these motions.
Yeah. So I ended up not going back to my 9 to 5. Took on photography full time, which was scary, but it quickly ended up working out. Me being home had more time to market, and it all worked out. Um, and you were, still going back. You were still going to school. Uh,
Well, what had happened was there was finally one night um, where I just had enough. I mean, one thing that's really important to say is it wasn't just the constant verbal beatdown. It was just the lack of appreciation, I guess. And it, don't get me wrong, like 90% of those guys are great guys, like awesome guys. Even for, I mean, I'm tiptoeing here, but because a lot of these guys, even in their worst days, they were nice guys.
and I had been saying for a few months now that we were at a point where in my business, I was bringing in enough money to where I was saying, it's time. Uh, but that took a while for you.
Because it's just it sounds ridiculous to give up a well-paying job when, I mean, if you're being real, like you're only working twice a week, like to get a job where you're able to watch your kids grow like that, like it just goes to show you how bad it was.
Yeah.
To where there was finally that night where I'm not one. I don't like to be accused of stealing and whatnot, and not that I was, and not that I was being accused of it, but again, that depression, that anxiety. If somebody had one question to ask right away, I would defend myself. Like, why would you think I would do that? And they would be like, I never said you did anything, and that would look suspicious in itself. But it just got to the point one night where I had enough, and my boss swatted my pen out of my hand and called me a fucking idiot, fucking retard, whatever it was, and I just blew up. That same look I gave my mom's boyfriend. I mean, all that came rushing back, and I just, again, don't you fucking touch me, blah blah blah. We were like 50 miles away from home, and I was his driver, and I told him to fuck off. I left him there. I think I went back one more time after that, and it was a repeat, and I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna end up getting my ass whooped.
Yeah. And I just remember being so happy that you finally did it.
And I was too at first.
And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, that was the solution. That's why he's been so upset, for the last, I mean, was it like 2 years?
Yeah, but
2 years at that point. Like, and so, okay, in my eyes, he's fixed where we can go back to normal now. But, we are still struggling too. You were struggling with yourself. And again, my business and just being overall happy, where I was at. A lot of the insecurities were coming out, and you just became very introverted during that time when before, you were the most extroverted person I know. Just with me, we would go out all the time and hang out with friends, and I'm starting to meet new friends, and I'm thinking, oh, Ryan would love them, and I can bring him along too. And absolutely no, not even a chance. I got to the point where I don't even come up with an excuse when people would ask. I would come up with an excuse before anyone would even come and talk to you
you'd have
because
a
I
whole
knew what the
you'd
answer
have
was
a
going to
handbook
be.
ready.
Yeah.
But I think that was because I finally accepted the fact that, dude, you're fucked up. Like, there's something wrong with you, and I took that as I'm gonna have to figure this out on my own, and you have to figure yourself out. This is the one thing you haven't done all this time is sat down and, dude, who are you? Like, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? And that's when I started asking friends, and I even asked you, Jacqueline, like, if you were to, say, this is my friend Ryan, or this is my husband Ryan, he, ellipsis, dot, 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 he what? He's good at this, he's good at that. Like, what would you say? And everybody just, like, drew a blank.
You started doing a lot of reflecting after you quit your job.
Yeah,
You
because
had the time.
and I told everybody, I was like, I don't want to turn 30, man. Like, I don't feel good about it. And everybody laughed at me, like, what are you talking about? Like, you're only 30. And to me, 30 was a big deal because you got to have some shit figured out by then. And at 30, I didn't have a job. I wasn't done with school. Um, you were my sugar mama, and like I was everything I despised as a kid. Like, just I felt like I was living off you, and I kind of was, even though like that was our plan the whole time. Like we were gonna flip. I wasn't ready for it like I thought I would be.
Yeah, and I just had a really hard time understanding that because, again, logical me, this was the plan, Ryan. We're married, we're one.
I
This is how
know.
you support me, I support you. This is what we do for each other. And honestly, like, again, it kind of has to do too with the way I was raised because my parents, at one point, like that's just how I was raised. They had their struggles in supporting each other and doing, you know, whatever they had to, and it didn't matter. And so I just couldn't process that or understand that, and it
I feel you.
I didn't know who to be. I didn't know who you were. Sometimes the mornings you woke up, is this going to be a good day or a bad day? Oh, bad day. Okay, great. Um I just stopped being myself
I
too.
noticed. I 100% noticed because, like you said, I became introverted.
Yeah. And so I felt like I had to kind of come down that way on your level just to get through the day.
And that breaks my heart too because that I was struggling with the same exact thing at the exact same time. Like, I understood, like, for example, when my teacher listened to my professor, I'm sorry, Professor Carlstad, shout out, phenomenal teacher. Um, when she was, when I was talking to her about this, and I was like, I felt like I wasn't supporting my family. I wasn't being, this quote unquote man of the house kind of. And again, it wasn't like man of the house, like I wear the pants power kind of thing. It was just I wasn't pulling my weight. Like I wasn't contributing. I was hurting, if anything. I was costing money and I wasn't giving anything back. Um,
You became so paranoid too about what everyone else was thinking. Uh,
but
and
she said, well, you can't, you shouldn't gender role like that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh no, don't get me wrong. Like, I supported my wife 110%. Like, I told her every single day how proud I was of her. To this day, like, I'm blown away by the amount of success she's had as fast as she has.
yeah, you do. You absolutely do.
And again, during the midst of all this depression, like, I mean, every day I tell our kids, like, go tell mama how beautiful she is. And they'll go run up and tell her, Mama, you're so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, that's just that mask. Like, I don't want you or the kids to think this has anything to do with you. Like, I'm just now realizing that I'm 30, 31 years old, and I have just as much to my name as I did when Chris's house burnt down.
And the more you started just opening up to me about it, um, was when I finally started to understand that, yeah, it wasn't just me. And I knew it wasn't always just me, but I just thought I played a big factor because I can't tell you how many times I just hopped in the shower because the shower kind of became my place uh,
I
to
noticed.
uh, to relax and just close the door and have some alone time. And I was never a crier, never been very emotional when it came to crying, at least in our relationship. And I that changed, and so that was kind of like the one place where I could just go and no one would notice. And there was a lot of that going on. Um,
And I mean, I understand that completely because I mean, same. Like I'm not a crier. Like we were talking about when we were doing our notes, like I couldn't believe that my dad's death was the first time he seen me cry. Because that was how long into our relationship? 7 years. Um, but I'm also not a crier, and there was a couple times, for example, one time I was going to hockey, and you had a wedding, and I had the two kids with me, and everything was fine. Like we were listening to music on the way there, getting pumped. They're all happy. I get out of the car, and I go to open up Jackson's door, but I have to like get something out of the front seat. I forgot, and I go to grab it, and I just break down crying. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? Why am I crying? I'm not sad. Like, it's just everything was so exhausting. Like, I was just beat down again. I felt so defeated. I just felt like I was going through the motions. I am now fully blown depressed. Just every day hating life. Um, I reach out. Well, no, I don't even reach out. That's a lie. I don't really reach out that much. But then when I try to hang out with friends and get blown off, like I blow up on them.
it didn't make any sense.
They really didn't.
It never did. And for me, couldn't I couldn't tell you,
No, I know.
I couldn't be like, Ryan, you're acting crazy, because that wouldn't have not gone over well for us.
And it was terrible for me because it was these irrational outbreaks I would have that would cause my depression because I would realize as I'm doing it how obnoxious I sound. But I'm just so I feel so misunderstood that I don't care. Like I want to say something to hurt your feelings because I'm so just pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think looking back at it, a lot of that was because I was hurting so bad, and I did as much as I could without sounding as needy as I because I don't want to sound needy. I just know I need my friends. I did reach out in a roundabout way a couple times and just shot down, shot down, shot down. Um, it's just heartbreaking. It just makes you feel so isolated. And I'm the one sitting here with the two kids, begging my single friends, maybe not single, but no kids. I'm begging for a night where they just come over and we just like talk. Like I just need someone to fucking talk to for a little bit. I don't want to go to a bar. I don't want to have a couples night. Like I just need my best friend. None of them like I mean they did here and there, but it's like it'd be like a one-time checkup and then gone. And when you are depressed like that, and mind you, I'm not working either. Like you don't think that, man. You're not the circle of these people's lives. Like we're adults now. They have their own shit going on, man. Like you I needed help and I knew I had to ask someone other than my friends, and that was the hardest thing for me to do.
It was really hard to watch you go through that, because your friends weren't just your friends. Again, like you said before, they were your family, and we know why they were your family, because of the past. And so it's like you're just getting let down again. And as a wife, looking back at it now, I definitely would have, there's things that I would do differently than what I did, which was just, aside from just being there for you and listening, um, I feel like I could have reached out to them. To be honest, I don't really recall a moment where I just straight up said, "Listen, guys, this is what Ryan's going through." I think it was always me just trying to tell you to be open with your feelings and talk to them yourself.
Right.
Again, I never realized how bad it truly was because
And in my eyes, that means I did a good job
yeah,
because
you did a good job, and like when you have kids too, you still have to take care of them, and I'm juggling that. I'm juggling being the only one working with not just like working but owning a business. It was a lot. Um and it's something I feel bad because it's like I wonder was I there enough for you?
well, I mean, of course you were. I mean, the pandemic came,
Yeah.
so you had to be here for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
hang
that's
on, I want to change the mood a little bit because this is supposed to be a positive out. I mean, this is when we're supposed to show you what love is capable of, bae.
yeah.
So to make fun of myself a little bit, to bring up one of those breakdown crying moments. One day I'm sitting there, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning. I got a nice big bowl of his like life cereal in front of me, watching Price is Right, all by myself. And this black lady, she's like, I don't know, maybe like 40, something like that, mid age. She crushes it. She wins a car. She spins the damn wheel, gets $1. Like this girl crushes it, wins her showcase. I'm so happy for her. I just start crying my eyes out. I'm sitting here now, I'm laughing and crying. So I'm like, what is wrong with you? It's the fucking Price is Right. Like, oh, anyway,
I remember you telling me that, and it's like, what?
I thought it was hilarious,
I mean, I was laughing too.
but it wasn't
You were
funny.
laughing, I was laughing.
Um, but yeah, then the pandemic hit, and mental health became a huge issue all of a sudden. Not
Right.
that, I mean,
Yeah.
on the news, everywhere, just,
Everyone. Yeah.
check on your friends, blah, blah, blah. This is a very depression and anxiety. It's killing Americans at a higher rate. And I'm thinking, like, oh man, like, I don't want to sound like a dick, but for a second when that pandemic started, the world stopped.
Yeah, because you quit your job, I think, like 2 months before.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it wasn't, I don't even think it was 2 months. It was a short period of time.
Yeah, yeah.
And being in that depression and it felt like a relief to me. That's a terrible thing to say because you never, I mean, the amount of lives that were lost and
No,
I mean,
but I
we're
think
still
there's a
stuck
lot of
in this,
people who know where we're. I'm sure there's many people out there who know where we're coming from, looking at it in a positive way.
and that's when I really dove into myself and I started, Ryan, you got to figure out who the fuck you are, what you stand for, what you want to do. So I started,
Listening to podcasts
listen,
was
I
one.
mean, Dak Shepard, armchair expert, the guests he would have on would be so random. He still, I mean, to this day are still great. I still listen to him. He'd have actors, actresses, musicians, psychologists, neuroscientists, biologists, um, professors, comedians, everything. And it was just it was insane to hear. Like, they all had their different perspectives on life and how they got to wherever they got, but they all revolved around the same idea. And that's, you just got to believe in yourself. Like, eventually, you got to make yourself important. And that's finally something I was ready to do.
You got like you were very excited about that's when I started seeing a new spark because I don't listen to podcasts, and you would just come down and start filling me in about everything, and it was almost like to the point where you it's like you knew him,
Oh, I was
Dak
having,
Shepard.
yeah, I was having human conversations again, kind of, or
And I'm
someone was
just excited that
understanding
you're
me.
happy. So I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, like, and I'm listening. Um, and then, secondly, too, you started picking up on finally, well, you picked up the sticks on the drum set that I bought you a year prior for Christmas.
All right, that's something I told Jacqueline I always wanted. I wanted it every year for Christmas, a drum set. One year I finally got it. I set it up, played it for maybe like a week or two, learned a beat, and it sat. It just sat because I had no momentum to get anything going. But once that pandemic hit, and now there was literally nothing to do, and I felt like the world stopped. Like that was the perfect time for me to figure myself out. And that's all I did this whole pandemic. This whole time, I mean, I was jumping around. I just wanted to learn. I jumped deep, deep, deep into history. I mean, I it didn't matter what classes I was taking. Like everything I was watching on my free time was everything I was watching on my free time was history related.
Have you mentioned yet that that's what to anybody that that's what you were going for? You know, you want to be a history teacher?
No, yeah, I'm going to be a a secondary social studies high school teacher.
Well, I start to see a big change in you now. You know, you're listening to the podcast, you're starting to play the drums, um, and school. You know, school turns remote. You pass biology finally.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, so that was a good thing that came out of that. And and you quit your job, so I'm thinking this is gonna equal Ryan happy, and then it's it slowly didn't. And also, because of being a wedding photographer, the pandemic and everything, when it hit, my job was done for the year pretty much. So in my head, with all the stress with me and my job that it was causing, with the insecurities and, the thoughts that he was having, I'm thinking, okay, sweet, I'm forced to stay at home. This is going to be a good thing. Because in the end, now there's nothing to argue about or get upset about, right? And then I don't know, you started going kind of downhill again.
Right, yeah, because then the mental health they were talking about with the pandemic and all those other people that might be dealing with it now, it just doubled me up. Like now I just felt even more alone. So I put the drums back down for a little bit. Um, the world got a little bit darker, and eventually I said, I need help. It took, I guess, more than I'm willing to get into now, but it took enough for me to finally say, I need to get on some kind of antidepressant. I need to find, if I don't find something soon, I'm leaving. One way or another, either in my car and never coming back again, or leaving this earth. One of the two.
And, that's something as a wife you hope to never have to hear that about your spouse.
And to put this into perspective, the reason why I'm saying this is because my only goal in life was to make you and the kids happy. Like that's all I want. Then you're like, well, what are you talking about? You're gonna leave then? You're gonna kill yourself. What would that do? For me, that would bring pain for maybe like a year. I mean, sure, the pain will be there your whole life, but eventually you'll dust yourself off and you'll move on, and you'll finally get that husband you deserve, and your kids will get that dad that's not just this depressed sack of shit that sits in the corner every day. Yeah, I got help.
There was no question, when you came to me about that everything was, no matter what, everything was put on hold, and that was the first thing. And said, call your doctor right now. And you did. And then, they prescribed you the medication.
Didn't work at first.
No, it took, but I think in your mind, it like the medication wasn't working, but I think there was some sort of like mental mental thing in your head, like thinking like I'm taking about to take these pills, I'm going to be better. So you were trying. It wasn't just like you were waiting for the pills to work. you did start to like make it happen for you as well.
Yeah, I remember now. I did try to.
You started going for walks. You started waking up at like 7 a.m.
I tried to
way
fake
before
it.
me.
Is what I tried to do.
And yeah, well,
And
you
I
did
was,
good because I had no
but see
idea.
that was the trick part where I was on to something. It was a mistake, but I learned something from it. I learned that my mind was trickable. You know, I learned that, yeah, I guess my mind was trickable. I mean, it was you gotta have control over how you perceive things. Um, and I started telling myself that, oh man, this water's making me feel so good, and waking up early on purpose and going for this walk feels great. Did it really? No, fuck no, it didn't. But eventually it did. Um, but the antidepressants weren't working, and that's, I don't want to say that was a wake up call because I knew I had a problem, but that's, I guess, a confirmation for me. Like, okay, I am getting healthy. It's been about a month and a half now. I've been walking every day, jogging now, riding my bike, drinking water like never before. I mean, I'm a pop drinker, and I was smashing those 64-ounce things and then some every day. And it still wasn't working. I still couldn't snap out of this sadness.
I remember just constantly trying to keep you in a good mood and
Mm-hmm.
just being like, honey, before you know it, next semester is going to be here and you're going to be in the secondary program. And just wait, it's going to be so much fun after this summer. Because, I mean, I think we can all recall, and if anybody's gone to college, taking prereqs and how much that sucks. And especially when, in Ryan's case, how long he has been taking them. He's 30 years old at that point, and he's still, taking the prereqs.
And I couldn't get
I can't imagine how tiring that is. And
another disclaimer. I didn't get financial aid until I was 26. There was something about even though your parents are divorced, their income still counts together. So financial aid wasn't an option. I got a little bit of loan money, but I guess if you're wondering how did he make all this money and he's broke now, that's it. A lot of school, and I mean our house is paid off.
at one point, when you were doing a lot of self-reflecting, there's one thing that really stuck with me, and I feel like it's important to say because maybe somebody else is going through similar things. But you had told me that with your self-reflecting, you think that a lot of those feelings of the insecurities and that I'm going to leave you and that I'm too good for you had to do with that we were in the same stage as in our marriage as your parents were at the time when they had
Not when they divorced.
not yeah when they
I was 12 years old when it happened, and we had been together for 12 years. So I guess, I mean, to put it, to help you out, I think in self-reflecting, uh, I was right a lot of the time, and I was wrong a lot of the time, and I was just trying to make a connection every way I could. Um, and I mean, I learned that in every little connection, there's a little truth and a little false, and um, I guess basically what it was is with the depression I was dealing with nowadays. I don't think it had much to do with the amount of time, the years, but I think it had a lot to do with dealing with depression again and dealing with abandonment and all those feelings rushing back. And just thinking I already knew what this outcome was going to be. Dealing with the anxiety of you leaving in the morning when you were going to be gone all day. And I easily noticed that I was putting you in a bad mood before you even left. And it wasn't that I was doing it intentionally, but I noticed that I was making a habit out of it.
yeah before the pandemic, when I was still working, that was, I guess that's kind of what I was getting at when I was talking about how showers became my friend because um, that was I was ready to just when you would I would leave to go to work 90% of the time in a bad mood, and I'm like, it shouldn't be like this. And you know,
You're right, it
I
shouldn't.
started having my moments too. And I'm just ready to give it all up, saying, screw it, I don't want this job. If that's what's causing all this, then I don't want it. Because you were my focus and I knew that wasn't the true you. I knew it was the depression. And it's hard as a spouse to not take things personally. And that's why the communication became so important when you started getting the help that you needed and got on the antidepressants. It was mostly not until you had gotten them switched because the first ones weren't working for your body. Um, but that's when the communication really truly started. And then even my self healing could start
Right.
with all of that.
And I think, again, like you said, I was self reflecting at the time and whatnot. So I think a lot of it had to do with, so I'd have anxiety about it, and I would say some like asshole comment that would have you say something to me, and that would be my trigger. And then I wouldn't be like an asshole towards you, but again, I would like,
No, it was just
I'd
side
sulk and
comments that
walk
were so
away. And
unnecessary. Yeah.
yeah. And,
The way you would go up the stairs and slam the door. And I'm like, what?
and I realize that I'm doing this right because I mean I'm stepping outside the box. I'm looking at myself doing this, and I'm like, okay, now if she wasn't gonna cheat before, now I mean, why would she want to stay with an asshole like this? Like, and it's just I mean, walking contradiction. It's just nonstop. Like I see myself being this devil of a person, but I can't stop it. And then I'm sitting there afterwards saying you're such an idiot, like, and just replaying it over and over in my head. Just where did I fuck up? Why did I? And it's just Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like you almost start to feel schizophrenic, like you're dealing with two different people,
Yeah.
and that's where
I mean, that's the perfect comparison
and it's
for
just
all of it.
that's where I empathize with like these addicts, recovering addicts. Um, Jesus Christ, like to have to try to explain yourself when like it doesn't even feel like yourself. You're just they're just trying to get the one thing that'll make them not feel sick or that will make them feel numb and forget everything. Um, to live in that kind of world is it's dangerous.
When you got onto the newer medication, that was when we started seeing a big change. And also at that same time, the next semester of school started, still at home, because this is fall of 2020. And that was when your secondary program started.
Yeah. Now, sorry, babe, but this is where I'm going to kind of take over because this is where I started coming alive again. I felt like,
The excitement.
and I felt like I could express myself again. I felt like a kid again when I was that kid that, told the whole world to fuck off. I'm going to do things my way. I finally spent enough time self reflecting. And I mean, I went off the walls for a minute where I started thinking I was losing my mind. I mean, I was looking up a bunch of different religions. No, nothing like deep, nothing to where I'd get lost in it. But I was poking my head in every single window I could find. I mean, religion, perspective, like I said before, neuroscience, just everything all around. And school just lit me up. Like I just finally, you know what, if I'm going to be here, why am I going to sit here with my camera off and not have a good time? What is the point of like if I'm going to be here, I may as well have fun. So I turned my camera on and I started making jokes like I used to, and I had my teacher laughing, and I can't tell you just how much my teacher laughing at my jokes and seeing where I'm coming from in different situations and just saying like, yes, that's exactly right. Just it's the first time in my life like I'm feeling praise in a long time ever since I married you or had my kids. Whenever I would get those praises, I would deflect it, be like, "Oh, those kids, they get their looks from their mom," or I would always I can't take a fucking compliment to save my life because again, anxiety, depression, I don't know. Um, but again, I felt alive, and it came down to that medication. Whether I mean whether it did or not, it's irrelevant because in my mind it did. Um, and that's that's what it all boils down to, man. You need to look inside yourself and just say, you have to figure out what you want to do for you, what makes you happy. And when you do that, everyone around you becomes more happy because they don't want to be around a miserable asshole all day long. And just when you start, yeah. So, I have a social studies perspectives class. Um, right before I started taking this class, I got deep into the story of Detroit. Um, there was a previous history class where it was a project of mine, and I just, whatever, last minute had to throw it together. But in that last minute, like, I was blown away by it. I mean, I knew about the riot. Um, I knew about the previous riot before that. I knew a little bit of background, but when I really dug deep into it and learned about redlining and how they just got stuck, the black people just got stuck in this area, and nobody. I just got deep into the story of Detroit, and I empathize fucking greatly with it, just from being misunderstood and trying to rebound and looking like a reckless abandon. Um, and now it's comeback story. It inspired me, and I just keep thinking the stars aligned because crazy things keep happening where it makes me just like smile. Like, we had to do our final project, and because of the pandemic, everything was really sketchy. There was three different examples or three different options you could choose from. Um, I was, I don't know, fucking off doing something, not really paying attention, as he was going over this, and he was talking about the first option. He's like, nobody signed up for that one. It had to do with creating a community field project. And I guess he had called on me and I had missed it. So I was like, no one's done the first one. I'll do it. I don't care. Um, and you had to go out to Detroit, or you had to plan like 7 hours worth of field research and put together this huge plan. It's basically like, it's my last class I have to take before student teaching. Um, and I just took it on, and I just that's this created that whole project created Comeback Kid. Whether I hit the spot or not on the project, I don't know if it'll be an A, but in my heart, it's an A. I mean, I've spent the last 3 months creating this thing, and it's become my life, and it's given me perspective on why, Jacqueline, why you took your photography so seriously in the beginning, and why I was jealous of your job for so long, because you're creating this. This is you.
Yeah, and just how many hours you have to put in at the beginning. It's just funny seeing you go through it now,
Oh, and I love
too.
it. And I mean, everything I've learned along the way is what I love about it. It's the journey of learning all these new things, and everything that I've been so critical about for so long, and I've always made fun of because I didn't want to attach myself to anything. And to finally find that thing that, I mean, the quality of these podcasts might not be great at first, and all I really have for now is my podcast. And then on YouTube, I uploaded the playlists that go along with the sound with that will go along with the soundtrack. But the ideas I have for this are just, I like to explain it as an octopus, because I have my podcast that I want to have after I'm done telling this story that seems to never end. Um, I plan on having my friends on that really helped me out throughout it. Um, that's why I've left so much out, because I can't wait to laugh with them about it. Um,
One important thing that I've seen too is just the marketing, the communication, meeting new people, reaching out. That's
oh my
something
God,
I
yeah.
haven't seen you do in a long time, and I had to do the same. It opened up a whole new world for me when I started my business in photography and meeting others just like me and other creatives, and it's so important.
And that's the big thing with music. I mean, that's one thing that, I'm just so excited to talk about Comeback Kid. Unfortunately, the drums have taken a bit of a back seat for me, and I've played those things nonstop every day for 3 4 hours a day. Um, and it's one thing I'm starting to feel confident in. And I remember being in my depression and putting the sticks on and be like, what's the point? I'll never get there. I'll never be Travis Barker. And I started to realize, like, it's because you're not Travis Barker, you dumb fuck. You're Ryan. Learn how to do it. Learn to play how Ryan plays. And I quit trying to compare myself to everybody else, and I just started trying to figure out me. And when I started doing that, I stopped bitching at my friends for not being there for me because I realized how much work it takes. Um, and you just stop pointing fingers at everybody and you start pointing fingers at yourself. You start telling yourself, you are in control of this. If you're not happy, change something. You have to take that first step. You have to take that problem and blame yourself. I'm talking about your emotions, your state, your mindset. I was so terrified to start this thing because I was scared people were going to think I found God or something, or some hippie. Again, I'm just worried about the stereotypes, and that's something I'm going to have to deal with every day because this is just about helping people through their struggles and taking that first step. That first step is so crucial because once you start taking that first step, the ball just starts to roll. And it's funny because I remember a couple months ago thinking about not this episode in particular, but getting to the episode where I explained, my what I do now to beat depression, to beat anxiety, to give myself that confidence back. And it just makes my, like, I'm excited to work every day. I'm excited to call it work every day. Do I get a paycheck? Fuck no. But I will one day. And the paycheck's irrelevant anyway because all these, again, I'm getting ahead of myself because I have merch. I have these T-shirts. I have about 80 of them in my house that I haven't even put up for sale yet because I'm trying to find the right organization to donate to. Again, Detroit is dear to my heart. Even though I'm not from there, I empathize deeply with it. And I want to create Soul Town. Music means so much to me, and I know how much music means to Detroit, Motown, Detroit Rock City. It's sure we're an automobile industry, but we're also a soul city. And if we really tap into that, if we really tap into our soul, realize what pulls us all together instead of what's tearing us apart, it's going to be incredible what we can accomplish. Um, what are you smiling at me for?
That was so good.
Shut the fuck up.
See,
That being,
this is the fire I have been waiting for in you.
oh, this computer's about to die. I better save it.
Wrap it up.
That being said, thank you, babe. Thank you for everything. Thank you for not giving up on me. I love you to death. I love you more and more and more and more every single day. Thank you for my two beautiful kids. Thank you to all my friends and family and everybody that's listening to this. This is my medicine. This has become my medicine. You guys have become my antidote. And as long as you guys keep listening, I'm going to keep putting these out here. So signing off, episode 2. That's a wrap.
I love you.
Come back, kid, out.